Hey everybody, just want to share a quick little insight from my City General Conference this morning. While I was walking to church for Ward Council, I was listening to the October 1931 General Conference, and the presiding bishop, David A. Smith, was talking, and he gave a really, really valuable talk, I feel, about finances and fiscal responsibility. Something that you may not have noticed, but is still a prevalent tradition up to now, is that whenever a member of the presiding bishopric talks, his address and his comments are generally focused more on the temporal aspect versus the spiritual aspect. And that's because they are over all the temporal affairs of the church. And so if you think about it, when Bishop Cosé was talking recently, he talked about our stewardship of the environment. And that was the theme of his talk. Well, back in 1931, the Great Depression was going on. And so Bishop David A. Smith was talking about unwise fiscal practices of the church, not of the church as a whole, but of the members of the church. And specifically, he was calling out the fact that they did not listen to the prophets, and that because they did not listen to the prophets, the effects of the Great Depression were being felt to a much larger extent among some other members of the church, but that those who had listened did not. And he goes over various different aspects, the very things that we are still counseled to for this day. For example, he talks about a man who had taken his paycheck, went to the store, bought a radio, couldn't pay for it all, and so he's like, hey, I'll pay you $5 now, and I'll pay you $1 a week for the next 5 weeks. Then he lost his job. And he goes, now what is he going to do? And I think that this is something that we see a lot in our days, credit cards. We want to buy things on credit. And Bishop Smith was talking about the dangers of that. And if you look at recently, we've had Elder Holland talk about the dangers of credit cards. I remember one of the talks I was listening to him where he's like, if you can't use a credit card responsibly, cut it up. It is better not to have a credit card than to use it poorly. And I think that's wise counsel. If you can't treat a credit card like a debit card and pay it off on a monthly basis, then you probably have no business actually owning a credit card, and you should get rid of it. There are some very rare extreme circumstances where credit cards are very powerful and important, but most people abuse it, and then they end up paying the piper, and it costs a lot of money. Another thing that Bishop Smith talks about is the dangers of investing with speculative funds. Basically, he talks about the dangers of businesses who were growing beyond their capacity. They were borrowing tons of money to expand, and how that when the money started to contract, these businesses all went under. He then contrasted that with a farmer who had reached out to him and said, hey, I have $1,000. Where would you recommend I put this? He asked him, where did you get $1,000? He goes, well, we've always only ever upgraded our home or our farm when we had the cash to be able to pay for it up front. And because of that, we have no effects of the Great Depression hurting our family because we own everything. And I think that these are just some examples of wise fiscal policy. Live within your means. Save for a rainy day. Don't buy on credit.